A child is the very breath, the heartbeat of their parents. For Hollywood stars, that love burns brighter than any spotlight. And for that very reason, the pain when their child is born with a disability or has to battle illness tears the heart even more. Some have walked away from careers at their peak to keep vigil by a hospital bed. Some have signed surgery papers with trembling hands, knowing it could be the last chance or the final goodbye forever. And some, for the rest of their lives, would never again hear the beloved words dad or mom. Get your tissues ready, because the stories ahead will bring tears to your eyes. Let's begin right now. 1. John Travolta. The seizure that took away his 16-year-old son. John Travolta, a face etched deep into the memories of millions of movie lovers, with those mesmerizing dance moves in Saturday Night Fever, the charm of Grease, and the triumphant comeback in Pulp Fiction. On the silver screen, he was the embodiment of a lure of dazzling victories. But behind those bright lights, there was a chapter in his life that, whenever mentioned, made his heart ache, as if a wound had just been torn open. In 1992, in Los Angeles, Jet Travolta let out his first cry. It was the moment John and his wife, actress Kelly Preston, had been waiting for all those years. Appearing on Good Morning America, John once said that when he wrapped his arms tightly around his newborn son, he could feel clearly that from that moment on, his life would revolve around a single mission: to protect his son from every harm. The early days of Jet's life were overshadowed by a cruel fate. At just 2 years old, doctors at Cedars-Sinai diagnosed him with Kawasaki disease, a rare condition that could directly attack the heart and other vital organs. Gradually, signs of autism began to appear, accompanied by severe seizures that kept the whole family on constant high alert. Their home in Ocala, Florida, was transformed by John and Kelly into a complete therapy space, a physical therapy room, a play area designed with absolute safety, and a team of nurses on duty around the clock. Kelly once choked up on the Oprah Winfrey Show, saying that just seeing Jet laugh would make all her worries disappear. Amid the tense days, there were still peaceful moments intertwined: Jet driving a golf cart with his father under the golden afternoon light, sitting for hours with his mother coloring a picture, or enjoying the sun and breeze together on the beaches of the Bahamas. Yet that peace was as fragile as morning mist. On the morning of January 2nd, 2009, while the family was vacationing at Old Bahama Bay, the sea breeze was gentle and the early sunlight was golden. Jet said he wanted to go to the bathroom. Just minutes later, a heavy sound rang out, piercing and chilling. When John and the hotel staff rushed in, the scene before him ripped the breath from his chest. Jet lay motionless on the tiled floor, his head having struck the bathtub hard. This seizure was too violent, sweeping him away like an unstoppable storm. Kelly collapsed to her knees, her voice calling for her son, shattering the air. John clutched his son's gradually cooling body tightly to his chest, shaking him desperately. "Jet, can you hear me? Open your eyes, please." Everything sank into a merciless silence. Jet was taken to Rand Memorial Hospital, but the doctor's announcement closed every door of hope. 16 years of life ended on what had seemed like a peaceful morning. The news flooded CNN, People, ABC News, but no headline could capture the depth of that pain. Months later, John and Kelly returned to the public eye. In a conversation with Barbara Walters, his tears wouldn't stop his voice breaking, as he said that since Jet left, a part of his soul had vanished. He would trade every award, every role, just to hold his son one more time. That emptiness remains forever carved deep into his heart, reminding the world that even at the peak of fame, the loss of a child is the greatest tragedy a human being can endure. And John Travolta is not the only one bearing such a wound. Another Hollywood legend, Sylvester Stallone, also had to face the harsh reality when his son was diagnosed with severe autism, forcing him to step away from the spotlight to walk alongside his child on a challenging journey. 2. Sylvester Stallone. When the invincible hero had to kneel before his son's illness in 1979, Los Angeles shone under the lights of glory. Rocky had just catapulted Sylvester Stallone to the pinnacle of Hollywood, with the press hailing him as the new icon of the era. But amid the cheers, the moment that made Stallone's heart swell with pride wasn't on screen. It was the moment he stepped out of Cedars-Sinai Hospital, cradling his newborn son, Sergio, in his arms. His face then was radiant, like a fighter who had just won the greatest victory of his life, the victory of a father holding his flesh and blood for the first time. In those early years, Sergio's life unfolded in the boundless love of his parents. His hair was as soft as silk, his deep eyes a mirror of his father's, his rare smiles as warm as the morning sun. Stallone often told friends that just opening the door and seeing his son looking at him could erase all the stress and exhaustion from the film set as if they had never existed. Then the first cracks began to appear in their picture of happiness. Sergio rarely responded when called, often withdrew into a corner, patiently lining up toys in perfect rows, avoiding sudden hugs. Sasha Chak, his wife, initially thought he was just reserved. But the afternoons they spent together calling his name dozens of times, only to be met with heavy silence, planted a seed of fear in their hearts. In 1982, at UCLA Medical Center, the doctor delivered the diagnosis into an air thick with tension: severe congenital autism. The sound of the pen scratching the paper echoed ominously in the silent room. Stallone lowered his head, eyes fixed on his shoes, as if the whole world had just collapsed before him. Years later, in an interview with People, he said, "I've been knocked down hundreds of times on screen, but no blow ever hurt as much as that moment." From that instant, the on-screen Rambo stepped into a battle with no applause, no visible opponent to defeat. He scaled back his filming schedule, pouring all his time, energy, and money into therapy for his son. Every speech exercise, every hour of physical therapy, every new method, no matter how unproven, he embraced them as if each fragile chance was the only lifeline. The smallest progress from Sergio became a priceless treasure. One day, after months of silence, he suddenly called out, "Dad." Stallone burst into tears right there in the therapy room, oblivious to the stares around him. A gentle touch from his son's hand was something he would remember for life. Yet between these moments came quiet stabs of pain. Many times he stood at a distance, watching his son gaze sadly toward other children, playing the sense of helplessness tightening